Hello.
Hello.
Before we start, let me just explain something to you. I'm collecting these interviews for a project that I'm doing for Georgetown College. And as long as you're in agreement, my intention is to post these interviews to my blog page afterwards.
Okay.
Would you be all right with that?
That's okay.
Okay, great. So what's your name, please?
My name is Yasemin Altas.
And where are you from, Yasemin?
I'm from Turkey, originally.
There was a story there, tell me.
Yeah, that's a question I always find difficult to answer because I'm from Turkey, but most of my life I still have lived abroad.
Mm-hmm.
I was born and brought up in Germany.
Uh-huh.
And then when I was about 13, we moved to Turkey. I studied a few years in Turkey, completed my high school, finished my university, and then I was out.
Uh-huh.
Like I went to England, and then a couple of years back in Turkey, and then now in the UAE.
So how many languages do you speak, Yasemin?
Right now 3, definitely.
Uh-huh.
I used to be able to speak French very well, but I haven't practiced, so I think that's gone now.
Uh-huh. Would you describe yourself as a bilingual, a trilingual?
Bilingual, definitely.
Why do you say that?
Turkish and German, because I was born and brought up in Germany, and I still have very close ties. But English has such a huge influence in my life as well. So I know that I don't speak any of the languages 100%, as in, English I have issues with sometimes, of course. Turkish I have issues. People who meet me for the first time, after 10 minutes, they will ask me, where are you from? Because I have still, intonation can be a bit off.
Mm-hmm.
They understand that I have some ties abroad, but they can't pin it down.
Mm-hmm. So what do you define as a bilingual?
I would say, if you can, if both languages are part of your life and you function in both ways, and it's interchanging all the time, and you're very comfortable with it, I would say bilingual.
You said you function. Determine functioning for me.
Like when I go to Germany, like I'm switched to German, and I don't have any issues with that. But also, it's not only the language. I would say mentality, culture. This whole your whole outlook on life is affected not only by the language itself, but also by everything that comes with it, as in living in a country, like the mentality, the culture, the ethics, the understanding of certain concepts, etc.
Yeah. Do you think language skills like reading, writing, listening, speaking, do you think that they come into a definition of a bilingual?
I would say yes. If you say you're bilingual, I would say bilingual when you grow up using 2 languages from your childhood onwards. That's how I define as bilingual.
Do you think it's possible to become bilingual later in life?
I'm thinking about it. I'm like, with me, for example, English, in the last, more than a decade, English has been the main language for every day. I dream in English. But I dream in German as well, or Turkish as well.
So you don't consider yourself trilingual?
I don't know what makes up a trilingual.
Well, you tell me.
Could be. I don't. Trilingual. I lived in England as well for a while. Mentality, etc. It goes all with the culture as well. I didn't think that you can become trilingual later on, as in. I think. You can speak 3 languages perfectly, but does it make you trilingual? I'm not very sure. Do you have to be Do you have to learn it from your childhood onwards, when
So
you are not aware that you're actually, interchanging the words, for example?
So for you, a key part of the definition of a bilingual or a trilingual is that the person acquired the language in their childhood.
Yes, that's how bilingualism is defined.
All right, let's move on. Let me ask you another question. Do you consider yourself rare?
There are many people who can speak more than a few languages. But yeah, I think so. The fact that I can just switch from one language to another, I get people to see that. They like, my fiance is like, wow, you're so quick switching. I talk to my brother, it's half Turkish, half German. And then I talk to my fiance, he's English. I think it's a pretty extraordinary skill that you can have. Not everyone has that. Maybe you can take it for granted as yourself because it's so natural. But I know that, no, not everyone can do that. Some people spend their lifetime to learn a language and they still can mix up a lot of the things.
So going back over something that you said, you can switch from one language to another. Do you manage to keep the languages separate?
I mean, I'm aware that I'm using them separately. I know that, yes, that's German, English. I mean, separate as in, it depends who I communicate with.
Tell me more about that.
Okay, I'm not quite sure, what context. It depends on the context. Let's say if I talk to my nieces, who are also bilingual, in Turkish and German, and they live in Germany, we do speak Turkish at home, but a lot of it is like Turkish and German mixed. I am aware that I use German in between, but we mix it because it's easier, because the flow of communication is not disrupted at that time. But if you want to just speak Turkish, you have to make a constant effort, depending on who you're talking to. If it's my niece, I don't make that effort. Yeah.
So if I recap on what you've said so far, your definition of bilingual probably includes having had a childhood experience, a deep childhood experience of the language, the automaticity of switching from one language to another, the fact that language is not just language, but it's also the cultural overlay, the attitude overlay, understanding at the conceptual level what the native speaker would understand. So here's a question for you. Do you think that you can call somebody who just uses the language every day bilingual?
No, because I use English every day in my life. I live in a country where English is used every day. Does that make me bilingual? No. A lot, especially here as well, with a lot of people function in English during in their lives in Dubai. Does that make them bilingual? No way.
No way.
No
What
way.
kind of people can you think of here on campus who use English every day who you would not classify as bilingual?
Staff around us. Just staff, who are not professors, who just the usual security guys, let's say, as an example.
Yes.
Yes, they have to use English every day. In Dubai, you can't function without speaking the language, but that doesn't make them bilingual.
So what is it that stops them being bilingual?
I think even for me, I use English all the time. I function in English. I know the culture. I know everything. But I can't consider myself really bilingual. Maybe it's because, maybe the childhood, etc.
So it hinges on the fact that you didn't learn English when you were a child. So you don't feel that you can become bilingual after childhood. Do you dream in English?
I do.
Do you dream in German?
I do.
Do you dream in Turkish?
Yeah, I do.
Can you read, write, hear, and understand in all three languages?
Yeah.
So
But
why?
here's a fact. I wouldn't be able to explain Turkish grammar to you, or I wouldn't be able to explain. That comes from a linguistic now. I mean,
Sure.
from a language point of view. I wouldn't be able to sit down and explain German grammar in detail to you.
But you can with the English grammar.
I can, but because it's also I'm teaching it.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't be able to do that with.
So that's clearly not part of your consideration of what a bilingual is. Isn't that a specialist skill when you come to think about it?
Or is it a skill that you have to acquire because you're teaching that language? You know, if I wasn't teaching English, I wouldn't be so qualified in teaching the grammar.
Can you count in all three languages?
Yeah.
Can you remember numbers in all three languages?
What do you mean? Like,
Well, for example, telephone numbers, social security numbers, national insurance numbers.
yeah. You mean whether I remember things in a certain language?
Yes.
Retrieving information like numbers, etc. It's about the information itself, the means to get it, whether it's German or English or Turkish. I don't think I'm aware of that. Do I remember a number in Turkey in Turkish and a number that I had in England in English? No, it's just
there.
In the context where I am, whether I need that information in English or not. If I need it in English, I would remember it in English.
Yasemin, thank you so much.
I hope that was useful.
It was extremely
You totally
useful.
confused me right now, though.
Why? Why have I confused you?
Am I a trilingual?
To me, you certainly sound like one.
Okay.
You certainly sound like one. Yeah. And I think it's interesting that you impose that barrier of if it wasn't learnt in childhood, it can never be learnt from then onwards.
Yeah, but that's also something because, studying language and learning about linguistics and, Pinker and everything, it's drilled into you that bilingual is basically when a child that is born into...
Oh, I know. And that was what started this whole series of interviews, because I'm reading a book now about, it's called Bilingual, and I have difficulty in accepting a number of the statements made in the book. The one about, do you think people can become bilingual after their childhood? The reason I asked you that one is that I became bilingual English-Portuguese definitely after my first son was born when I was 23 years old. I didn't speak virtually a word of Portuguese then.
Okay, so are you proficient right now?
Definitely. Definitely. To the point where Brazilians would not be able to distinguish me as a non-Brazilian.
Okay.
And the job that I did there, I ended up becoming the head of the Modern Languages department. So I had to write. And when I started, it was hilarious. I'd go back through the filing cabinet and take letters that had been written in the past and, just adapt them to the current circumstances, because I didn't have a clue. And it's the bureaucratic Portuguese is extremely specific and very, very florid and very archaic. And of course, I didn't speak that at all, so I even acquired that. Anyway, thank you very much indeed.
You're welcome.